Hello friends, this is Assimilate Live and I am Chandrakant. Today morning I received a email from a management consultant, very experienced management consultant with 20 years of experience, and this gentleman is asking for a job. I've gone through his profile and I'm really confused because the today's context, the type of client that we find and the type of business we are in is not what this management consultant has done, and therefore that made me to think, what is the possibility of management consulting business today, how they should reinvent to stay relevant. And to have this discussion, I will be joined by a very senior personality from UK who himself has been a very popular figure in the business. So friends, I'll join back along with my guest after a few promotional messages. Don't go anywhere, this is just a short break. Friends, have you ever wondered that making a lasting impression online is similar to landing on the moon? If yes, we have a solution for you. Assimilate Genius program will help you prepare for your upwards trajectory towards success in the digital world. Our program consists of 12 unique tailor-made sessions of 1 hour each, spread over 6 weeks. Assimilate Genius program provide you practical knowledge about how to optimally use online video platform with lights, action, camera, as well as crash course in using virtual screens. The program also includes a session on the grooming and online etiquettes, which are important for running your online sessions and webinars. At the end of the program, our participants would be allowed to make their own videos, which will be published on a very popular business channel called Assimilate Live. This will provide global recognition to all our participants. If you like what you hear, then using the link in the description below, join the program straight away or visit www.assimilate.com. Welcome back, friends, and today we have a very interesting topic to discuss. It's about management consulting, and to discuss this we have a very distinguished guest in our studio, Mr. Neville Gund. Welcome to the show, Neville. How are you today?
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm feeling great. It's a beautiful sunny day today. It's middle of the week, so the rest of the week is downhill, isn't it? A hump day or something? Isn't that what the Australians call it?
Of course, but we have just finished our share of huge deluge of rain, and we are just enjoying the little sunshine that we are getting right now.
Well, plants need rain, and now the sunshine's coming to dry them up. So, just like consulting, we used to have lots of consulting companies pre-COVID. But is the model bust? Has consultants, the big consultants, have they had their day? What do you think?
Well, Neville, I think that I worked for corporates where these consulting companies were hired to guide the corporate in the right direction, to find the new path, to find the new businesses. How do you find new clients, new type of clients, etc. So, we know all these top 5 companies. We don't have to take the name, but they used to bring their Bible, these thick, tested, tried models 8 by 8, and they say that, hey, if you implement this, you are going to make millions. Your turnover will double in next 3 years or 5 years. The challenge that I see right now is that since those old models are tested, tried models for last 100 years, and the COVID has changed the whole business scenario so drastically. My confusion is that will those models still work in today's concept?
Well, it's a really good question. And if you recall, I wrote a book just over a year ago now with a good friend of mine called John Gilmeny. And we entitled the book, Can You Handle the Truth? And a big question mark. And the reality of life is these models were bust some time ago. So even when I had a proper job like you did, when I was working in corporate life, we used to get these consultants to come in, the big four, as now big five or six maybe, and they would come in and literally interview all the staff and then put a beautiful review together and tell the board exactly what the staff have recommended, in essence. Not much different from that. And then they said, well, we'll help you implement it. And they charged a fortune, even for the smallest of corporates. They were investing in millions of dollars worth of investment. The question I always had was, does it work? And of course, it probably would work if they implemented everything the members of staff, the employees, were suggesting they did. But these consulting groups have an unusual way of twisting things slightly so that it wasn't quite what you thought you'd suggested to them. And consequently, they never work, because who's implementing them? You are. Very rarely do you see a wholesale change in an organization, in other words, people leaving, when you're implementing change. You tend to find you've got more consultants than you've ever had in the past, like little army of ants that are crawling all over the place and trying to help you succeed. Now, I don't think that they're trying to make you fail. I mean, that's number one. But are they making you succeed? And I think COVID now is challenging even more than it did in the past. But it's challenging all of those organizations to say, so how have you succeeded over that period? How have you survived? What was it in the organization that made you get through it and be where you are today? And when your organizations start to ask those questions and see actually how good they are, you know, and some of these are small companies and some of these are huge companies, but they've got through a storm. You know, this wasn't a storm that could be predicted. You know, this wasn't on the weather map. There was always the zombie virus that people were talking about, you know, the millennium bug. You remember that? 2000, you know, what's going to happen when the clocks suddenly turn to the 2000 agenda as opposed to a 1999. And not a lot's happened in those arenas. But you couldn't plan for this, really. But you needed to it needed to happen when you're on your feet. So this is about how robust have your people been? How robust have your systems been? You know, we hear about cybersecurity infiltrating the arena, but fundamentally, the best form of cybersecurity is having smart people. Not opening that email that looks like it's come from Coca-Cola, but actually it's got coca-cola1.com. Well, that's not a Coca-Cola address. There's someone that's been very smart. So I think where we are is we're in this, are we in this no man's land? I think we are. What do you think? Do you think we're in this no man's land where people are saying, can we put the old models back? Can we bring in our previous consultants to help us through this period? Now we're coming into, we've survived, but now we want to look at growth. Will they automatically go for their consultancy model and bring in people that have helped them in the past? I think these are big questions. I'd be interested to know what you think.
Well, Neville, I think this idea triggered today morning when I got an email from a friend of mine, and he said that his friend is looking for a management consulting role. Do you have some leads? And that got me thinking, because you know, even if we hire this management consultant, you know, what he's going to do for us, you know, we have to really, even to interview this person, we should have right questions. So I was you know, not sure what to reply, and that made me to start thinking about big fours and big fives. You know, they used to come with a strategy saying that, hey, if you fire so many people in 3 years, you will double your revenue. Your share price will zoom. And that is what they used to do. Actually, you fire a lot of people, give them a golden handshake, and let them go. And over 3 years, it's a no-brainer. Your share price will improve, the CEO will make his incentives and move on. So that used to be the plan in those days. That plan is not going to work now because everybody has moved on. There is nobody to fire. So how do you steer the company in the right direction? So that is why my question today, Naval, I don't think the old book or Bible of management consulting will work for companies of today.
So in essence, what you're saying is that the companies have been through the hardship, and then they've had to get rid of what you might call dead wood, for want of a better term. And it just so happens that the COVID crisis has probably identified a lot more dead wood in the organisation than perhaps you would have thought of previously. I mean, it's an interesting arena. I mean, I always have a little smile on my face when I get that type of email, because let me just ask you, what's the role of management consultants? What do they do? Just simply, not in detail. What do they do?
Well, I think, in my opinion, please, viewers, please pardon me because I'm going to talk what I think. These management consultants will come to your office, will interview or pretend to interview thousands of people across the board. They spend 2 months, 3 months, and they bill you for that, for interviewing and listening to your story, boring story. Hey, what happened? What didn't work? What worked? Etc. They are not doing anything with that. After 3 months over, when you have already paid $1 million to them, they will come up with their own plan, as if they have done a lot of research within their after taking your interviews, and they have come out with a very tailor-made plan. But in reality, it's the same plan. IBM would have got the same plan. CSE would have got the same plan. HP would have got the same plan from the same consulting company. And that plan is a 3-year plan. You implement this matrix 8 by 8, get rid of deadwood, and within 3 years, you'll find new clients, you'll find new revenue, your share price will double, and they will walk away with their incentive after 3 years. So I think that is what I feel personally. And my disclaimer is, it is just what I feel. I may be wrong also, but this is what I felt as a client of these big fours.
Well, like anything else, and this is about what you and I think here, and some of it is evidenced. And indeed, you've more or less said exactly what we said in the book, Can You Handle the Truth? Because that's what they do. And the interesting thing is, do you know what? They've done it for many years and it works. But the interesting thing is there is a different way of doing it, and you could do it yourself. But like anything else, majority of companies are already exhausted their employees, and they've got more than a day job each because they're getting more for less. But I'd just like to go back to the very simple thing about what consultants do. What they do is that they take you, what you believe they will do is take you to another level, to another plane, to improve your KPIs, your profit, your loss statement, your cash flow, stabilize your balance sheet, improve your balance sheet, get you more money, whatever it is. But the point about consultants is they're, in many respects, stopping the rot, if you want to call it one thing. I call it behavioral waste, and actually taking behavioral waste out of the system and putting new processes in place. They wouldn't know what behavioral waste was, most of them, but that's in essence what they're doing. So the key thing is, when you got that email from someone who's a friend of a consultant, weren't they doing it for themselves? Why isn't this business consultant actually doing it for themselves? They're always asking, lots of small consultancies are always asking for referrals into other organizations. And the interesting thing is, I don't want a referral in. I want to go and say, so what are you doing? How are you doing this? What are you doing about it? Because that's what they do. That's what consultants do. They ask questions. But they're not asking questions of themselves. Where am I getting business from? What is my core business? How am I going to grow? What processes am I adopting that are a complete waste of time? What processes should I be adopting? And I think this is the challenge, actually, of the small consultant. Because the really good ones are always employed. Always. You know, they've got more work than they can actually take on. And the thing is about the next tier that are, it's like a boom and bust. When they're employed, it's great. When they're not employed, they're asking for referrals. They need to start asking themselves questions. You know, what was it I did when I was fully employed? What was that client saying to me? How am I going to promote myself? Because that's how they get into the next tier and be fully employed. It really is as simple as that. You know, I don't want to make it complicated, because it's not. It might be difficult because you've never done it before. But once you start to get into that motion, then you'll get it. Now, another thing, you and I get emails all the time from all over the place. I get a load of emails and asked to be connected on LinkedIn. What's the biggest thing on LinkedIn that you've had people offering you recently?
Well, Neville, I think the biggest thing that I hear from people is how you can sell yourself on LinkedIn.
Exactly. You know, I mean, I almost sort of, you know, I led you into the answer. It wasn't deliberate, but how can you improve yourself on LinkedIn? What have you got to do? So all of these LinkedIn so-called experts, and I'll say so-called because there aren't that many that are that good, because they're all following very much a similar routine. But when you meet one of them, why isn't this management consultant investing in one of them? Because the management consultant is actually asking a company to invest in them. So you can't actually say, well, you do it this way, but that's not for me, because you're telling them to do exactly what you're prepared not to do. So I always find this a fascinating arena where people say, oh, you know, a bit down on my luck at the moment, you know, I'm a management consultant, can you help me? Why? You know, it's a bit like an IT expert, you know, why do you need my help? If you're that good, you should have a string of companies out there. If you're young and new to the game, yeah, I'll help you. Absolutely not a problem. But I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to ask you some pretty tough questions. And for those listening, if you want me to ask you those questions, I just have. So listen back to what we said in this discussion, because it's about growth. It's about survival initially, and it's about growth. Have I got a business? Is it scalable? Is it just a me? Is it a cottage industry? Can I collaborate with other people? All of these questions we can ask ourselves if we're in the right mindset. And I guess it always comes down to having the right mindset. And, you know, thinking about what I've just said here about that consultant that's, you know, asking for you to help them, has that given you any thoughts about what help you're going to give them?
Well, I don't have an answer, actually. I don't know what to reply to him. I can't tell him, hey, there are no jobs. Even if I circulate your CV, there will be no response. I think it's a journey that the consulting companies or business consultants will have to, you know, undertake themselves and find out what is the winning mantra for them to get employed right now, because the old process is all dead. You know, you can't fire any more people. They're already gone from all organizations, and the business demands are also changed drastically. So the management consultants will have to find new ways of generating more revenue for their clients, and for that I think they have to come up with the new idea. And so far I have not seen any new idea from anyone so far.
Well, is it a new idea, or is it just knowing about the business? I mean, one thing, as many people will know, I come from the oil and gas industry. Now, we used to employ real specialists in oil and gas. And why was that? Because they knew the industry inside out. they knew that there was never a 100% win. They knew, or the good ones knew, that it was a cumulative effect, a bit like compound interest. I'll get 1% here, 0.5% there, 2% over there. But they had this almost like a map in their mind of what other companies have done and how perhaps you can navigate these very different waters. Because, as you well know, despite the fact you're in the same industry, you may employ exactly the same number of people, looking as though you're doing exactly the same thing, but in reality, you're not. Because you've got a different people dynamic internally. You've got different shareholder base. You're on a different path to growth. You may be a pure punt in the arena, or maybe you're more of the stable influence. People are looking not for huge capital growth. Your investors are looking for sustainable growth, which is through the P&L as opposed to through the balance sheet. So I think there's a fantastic opportunity currently for really good, independent, or the large consultancies. They can help a company think about why are they doing what they're doing. They can help them go through a business process review. I'll now use the term BPR because in corporate world, BPR is pretty common. But again, the reality is most organizations don't actually do a business process review more than twice in their lifetime. So when the average age of a corporate is 30 years these days, twice, once every 15 years, my goodness, that's not enough. It's not good enough. Things are changing. If you do it once every 15 years and forget that there's a digital transformation happening out there, you could be dead. So this is how fun this arena can be. And, you know, I would love to go back into the world of I'll take that back, actually. I wouldn't love to go back into the world of consultancy. It's hard work once you get in there. But I think there's a great opportunity for the right consultants to say, here I am, this is what I'm really good at, this is what I've done for someone else in the same industry. That looks like a good company to go and address, knock on the door. That's the way you do it. Just knock on the door. You are showing that you are doing something different to everybody else. I was talking to on a business bunker the other day, and we were talking about a lot of the complaints in the world is that there aren't many jobs. Now, for those that are listening, I will say this very slowly. There are thousands of jobs. It's just that you don't know where to look for them. But if you did know where to look for them, you'd get one. Now, don't take my word for it, because I was actually talking to a person that runs a job site, one of the biggest job sites in the UK. And he said there are thousands of jobs, but people are just listing their CV online and expecting a response. We've become lazy, fundamentally, and that's where your management consultant is, I'm afraid. That email just shows me he's lazy or she's lazy. And my advice to them, if they're listening, you can send them this interview, is go and do it for yourself, because that's the only person that's actually going to make it work. Because who knows what opportunities are out there until you start to knock on the door. And the other thing is, go and find a specialist on LinkedIn. If you look at my inbox, I get 20 or 30 offers every day. We can get you 20 or 30 leads every month. You know, guaranteed 20 or 30 leads. Well, if you're a small consultancy, and the price for those leads isn't that much, actually, as long as they're good quality leads. You'd be quite surprised over time. But again, if you're going to go down that route of lead generation, it's not going to happen in a week. You have to be focused on it. But of course, the management consultant will know that, won't they, TK? They'll know that overnight successes are not instantaneous. They've never promised an overnight success. So why would they expect it from somebody else? Just a little bit of fun this morning in the world of management consultancy or any type of consultancy, really, because the same thing applies. That given you any thoughts, CK? I've seen you smiling at parts of what I've been saying there as touching a few nerves and perhaps delving into your history.
Well, Neville, I think you made a very good comment. That is, first, management consultant has to understand the business as it exists today, and then make a pitch. Because if he doesn't know the business, then there is no business for him also. So I think we can end our discussion today at with this message that please understand the business today, produce a pitch which works, which people buy in, and if you don't do that, then there is no work for you actually. So I think as a management consultant, you need to reinvent like everyone else. We are also reinventing ourselves. So even management consulting arena needs to reinvent himself in order to stay relevant. So Neville, thank you so much for finding time and talking about this very important subject this morning.
My pleasure, CK. Good luck, everybody, and go and knock on some doors. You never know what's available.
And before you start knocking on the doors, make sure that your pitch is right. So
absolutely.
All right, Neville, you have a good morning and a great day today ahead, and we will catch up with you tomorrow again on something even more interesting.
Cheerio, everybody.
Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Assimilate Technologies and welcome to Jeremy Blaine Live. As the name suggests, we have Jeremy Blaine with us, and Jeremy does not require any special introduction. He has worked as a chief executive in the leadership role across the world, and we are very honored to have Jeremy with us. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, CK. Great to be here.
Right, Jeremy. So I don't want to basically waste time of our viewers. I will straight away start asking you about the digital age, which has finally arrived. We needed a virus to bring the digital age. But nevertheless, it is here. But what does it mean? I want to take your opinion on that.
Well, you've got that absolutely right. We're finally there. In fact, it's synonymous with Industry 4.0, which is defined as the digital age. So it's a natural progression of where we've come through from the different industrial revolutions. And this one is defined as the physical, the biological, and the digital all coming together. So the best example of that I can give you is kind of, let's say, a wearable. So if you've got an Apple Watch or technology in your clothes, it's starting to use things that we're having together, not just the handsets in our phone. We're at the very beginning of this now, and thinking about so-called digital transformation actually for many years, but you're absolutely right. It took the pandemic to be the biggest accelerator of digital transformation since the iPhone in 2007.
So Jeremy, I think the subject about digital age, whether it is here or it is not here, or is it going to be status quo, I think these are all old stuff. So I think we can just move ahead from there. I want to ask you, from your network and your colleagues, what are they talking about? What are the opportunities for small businesses going forward?
Well, you heard me say so-called digital transformation because I agree with you. We talk about it so much, and it almost overwhelming for many organizations. And in fact, many organizations have failed in digital transformation, according to IBM and Forbes, 84% are failing in strategy execution as far as digital adoption goes. And one of the reasons for that was because they were focused mainly on the technology, because it was so kind of, this word digital kept coming. But also a very big key component part of this was that in a piece of research that I did last year around this state of digitalization, essentially, we found that across 3 continents, 40% of all leaders were just simply not ready. And that was not ready in their head as well as not ready in capability. But I'm happy to say, actually, I've pulled out a few things from that India was one of the top performing countries stroke regions in the world around that, and Asia Pacific as a whole, if I count South Asia in that as well, is really the accelerating region. So the big opportunity is actually to stop talking about it as digital transformation and start talking about it as whole business transformation. It's not about having a digital strategy, it's a strategy for a digital world, essentially. So the big opportunity for small, medium businesses, as much as large businesses who are really struggling, actually, is to start to think about what are the component parts of that journey that, yes, bring together the technology part, but most importantly, bind together the human touch and the human heart of our businesses, because that's where success will happen.
So, Jeremy, as you mentioned that even the large corporations are struggling. So, I think the biggest confusion today is that they allowed work from home to all their employees, and in fact, Google announced that they will have work from home for next 3 years across the world. But that is not the transformation. I think the impact of this is much profound, and there are going to be some businesses which will have to close their shops, or there are some other businesses which have to transform into something else, and there are new businesses which will come and acquire those places which are a quasi between digital and physical space. So next 1 year or 2 years, what are the opportunities for Indian companies? Why I'm asking this question, Jeremy, because let me explain. Slightly longer question, but let me explain. uh, you see, India drives the IT of the world today, as some people speak. But I think it's a collective responsibility. But there are $50 billion business, which happens usually until 2019, uh, from India to the rest of the world. And it's not a small number, 50 to $100 billion of IT projects which were happening out of India. So what will happen to that realistically? So I think I'll take, you're a best person to ask this question. What are the opportunities? Because there are a lot of confusion in the field. People are waiting for status quo.
Yes, and in fact, I strongly believe this is the coming of age of markets like India that are strongly invested in infrastructure like this, that have a workforce which is very tech savvy, very millennial driven, if you like, but perhaps hasn't realized that potential as yet. This is the coming of age. You mentioned a point about this, where we are right now. If I go back when I say just 30 weeks or so to the beginning of this year, 44% of all companies in the world did not even allow remote working, let alone be geared up for it. Over 80% of them by the end of March 2020 were scrabbling to do it. This is absolutely the opportunity out there in terms of infrastructure, beyond systems and platforms. This is about, for me, firmly believe, because of where India is in this marketplace, it is about being a champion of ecosystems for me. It is around taking that out to the world to say, forget individual systems and platforms. You need everything to talk together. This is, if you like, the way that we might introduce the Internet of Things, for example. But in the business realm, we need everything to talk together. This is the opportunity for many businesses in India and outside of India to start to think differently and bind things together. And it's a very interesting point that you mentioned about this. Where do we go from here? There are too many organizations and business leaders talking about, oh, I can't wait to go back to dot 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 or back to normal, whatever. I'm about going forward to possibilities. There is no greater possibility than now. And you're absolutely right, CK, is that there are companies that are going to fail. But this is a hugely transformational period that we're in, and it's not going to last very long, because this is where we are now, that those organizations that have managed to shift and change are the ones that are really accelerating, and this is where we'll see accelerated success, accelerated failure. But I have to point to some of the research that I did last year and evolved this year as well, as far as how well positioned India is. In terms of the 10 key factors that drive a high proportion of readiness and willingness to do this and capability of them, India are at the top of the list. This is being able to understand what a digital visioning is all about, a leadership commitment and capability that this is the way forward, a readiness to do this in India and outside it, the fact that progress has been made, and that things like adopting agile is there, being cyber secure is at the heart of the solutions that are coming out of India, being able to measure the more digital aspects of where we're going, because we shouldn't be looking at measuring our businesses how we used to. What are the digital measures that help us understand that we're making progress and helping big data make our decisions? If India, who are clearly at the top of the list of this, start to deliver and repeat that mantra outside it, that's where I think the growth can come from exponentially. The time's now, CK.
Yes, I think I also agree the time is now, but I see a lot of people in and around me in my office and in the neighborhood. They are still waiting for the good times to come back. They don't want to get out of this whole syndrome of not being able to meet somebody for a meeting. Like, for example, we are meeting digitally here, and that is a reality. But some of these people are very shy to meet. But let me get out of this rut and ask you a totally different question. You see, before the pandemic started, the era was fintech. We used to hear about fintech and a lot of transformation which was being brought by the tier 2 segment of the financial technology, because large banks are already transformed many years back. So they were already on the path of transforming the middle tier and the lower tier. But after the pandemic, it's the med tech and ed tech. These are the two new words which have come up. However, I must say that even these companies are only using this med tech and ed tech as a buzzword. I don't think anything is being done in that era. I mean, if you go to schools, simply using Google, technology to show your face is not teaching. So I think the time is now to create an application which will transform physical school into a digital one. And similarly in medtech. So I think there are opportunities, and I'd like to take your opinion about that.
I fundamentally agree on this, and there are actually, I must say though, there are pockets of excellence, certainly within the health field. I think we see now, we heard the news last night about Pfizer, and about kind of how they're accelerating things apart, as far as a vaccine goes, whatever. These are the small points that help it, but it's not, my way of looking at it, it's not joined together yet. So there are pockets of digitalized excellence, but it's not together. And I think one of the reasons why that is that we haven't got the unleashing backup technology yet in place that allows us to really drive the power behind this. So I'm talking about 5G technology, which is about 10 times as fast as 4G, microcomb technology, where by its kind of a chipset that would essentially allow you to download a terabyte of data in a few seconds, which is from then beyond that is quantum. These are the unleashing of things, smart cities, and binding a lot of these technologies together. But I think you're right, is that many industries that are talking about it, and there is far more talking about it around ed tech, learn tech, insure tech, fintech, health tech, you name it. There's lots of new vocabulary, by the way, which is being invented at the same time as well, which is also confusing. But education is a really interesting one for me because I also have worked in the L&D industry, for corporate training and corporate consulting for a while. And there's so much talk about it, but it really hasn't driven, and gone forward enough in the time. In fact, I'm going to be working with VIT quite soon in terms of consulting into them and advising them in terms of how ed tech can really start to come in to not just support what they're doing as an organization with their with their students, with their undergraduates and postgraduate students, but also the link and the bridge to the workplace and how that is. So there's a lot of great organizations and great educational establishments, particularly in India, who are really thinking about this, but binding it together is very difficult. Another one where actually I think there is more progress, and one less obvious one is from space and the use of satellites. I think you may have heard the news about, I don't know when, it was about a few months ago, when Elon Musk launched this array of satellites that you can see sometimes going across the world, this sort of line of data. This is about to unleash the power of observational data. Now, where it was a little bit like you describe, insurance or education, are talking about ed tech and what have you. Yes, Earth observation data, that's great. It's our satellites giving us data on whether it's a data source from up here giving us some information from here. That is now being transcended by not just a better array of things up here, but actually things that are on the ground at the same time. And that's called geospatial data. And that's like between an 8 to 12 times kicker between the power of data. And what that means is it brings all different sources of data to go beyond prediction, what we call predictive data, into prescribing the best of options moving forward, because we've got enough information. So these things are starting to come together, and I anticipate them to accelerate over this year. When I say this year, this next coming year, 2021. And by 2022, if we have this same conversation again, I think we could point to giant leaps rather than small changes.
Yes, Jeremy. In fact, we have heard about this. It's called Starlink by Elon Musk. It's a company which is being powered
Yes.
by Falcon X.
Yeah.
And I think they will have to have, if this succeeds, this is going to replace the 5G of Huawei. So I think we are all waiting for it and quite excited, because if there are 4 satellites on my head, then I can have pretty much a very high speed of connectivity. So I think we are all waiting for the hardware side of it. But I think there is still a lot of scope when we say digital. So there is still a lot of scope to convert the whole perception of doing business. For example, there is going to be a lot of AI, which is going to come up in a big way, predictive learning. There are a lot of applications waiting to happen in ed tech and health tech. Uh, but I don't see too much activity, especially from Indians. I will say that frankly, I don't see too many apps being developed by Indian companies which are sitting on the forefront of the IT revolution here.
What's interesting when you mention this is that while India, based on the research that I did, is very well positioned, I have to agree with you that the potential just simply isn't being realized. And when we kind of go into why, and when we start to look at what you're just saying right there, we come to the human touch, which I would argue is stifling the acceleration of change. So, for example, the way I talk about it sometimes is to say that there is 20th century thinking and there's 21st century thinking. Now, there are a lot of really fantastic, great organizations that were started that are flourishing in the 21st century in India at the moment as well. And it's those and around the world that are the ones that have slowed in terms of their digital acceleration, if you like. It's the newer companies that are growing, which are the ones that are more ready to move move forward. And there are some great examples of companies right around the world, actually, small startups that are making a big difference. But one of the problems is that to shift thinking from 20th century mindset is not just about, we've got to now start thinking about digital. We've got to start thinking about our workforce being a completely different beast, not based in bricks and mortar, remote, a mixed workforce, or I call it a blended workforce, permanent workers, but equally independent workers who are part of our team. We don't have even structures that can manage that particularly well beyond managed services. We need a completely different mentality about what our culture in organizations needs to adapt and look at for the digital era. We need to bring our people with us. But in the research that I did, I go back to the point that 40% of leaders globally were not ready for this. 40% of that total were not even willing. They were apathetic. It's not my problem. I'm retiring in 5 years. It's somebody else's problem. This is not the attitude that we need. We need some of these leaders to stand up and be counted and say, you know what? I don't know all of this stuff and I need it. So we need to get beyond the traditional hierarchical approach that we're looking at, the position and authority that we might have, and the pride of not being able to admit that maybe we need to develop ourselves. Great example in Singapore, ABS Bank. The CEO, very enlightened CEO, Piyush Gupta, who held his hand up a few years ago and said, we need to be digital. And I don't know what this is, neither do my management team. We need to get really uncomfortable with this. So they did a series of hackathons, they committed to it, they learned it, he learned it as well. And they're now voted for, I think, the third year running the best digital bank in the world. Their whole vision and purpose has changed beyond the bottom line, saying our whole sense of being is to make banking joyful. That is not a vision I've heard before, and so, but that is a vision for the digital era, because that actually unleashes a new way of thinking. How can we use technologies to do this? So, how can we mobilize technologies, as in put it onto our mobile, be mobile first driven, go beyond our bricks and mortars banks to have different relationships with our clients and attract millennials and Generation Z who view banking in a completely different way to what you and I do, CK. They have no interest in traditional banks. They're going for the new breed of banks like Starling, Monzo, Go Henry, these kind of things that are out there. So I think when we come back to India, there is, I think, the difference between the new breed of organizations and some of the traditional organizations is speed and perfection, actually. So speed, that ability to be agile and do things quickly, but also that ability to think that we do not need 100% solution. In fact, the co-CEO Jessica Tan of a Chinese insurance company called Ping An, said, actually, speed is the competitive advantage these days. A 70% solution can kill us. So, we have to be comfortable in getting a 70% solution out there and not waiting for 100% solution, because the pace of change in technology these days means that you're constantly evolving it. It's like when we download an app, the very next day we're getting version 1.1, with a patch, and it's completely normal. SpaceX, we talked about Elon Musk before. It took him, I don't know many times, 13 times to get that rocket up into space. Look at it now. So I think there's lots of things going on there, but it is fundamentally an attitude piece at human level first, and that ability to think differently about what our businesses need to be to accelerate digital.
In fact, Jeremy, there are a few businesses which are going through major trouble right now because of pandemic. I think there are serious issues related to the print media because nobody's buying. There is a serious threat to advertisers because there is no need to advertise because nobody's buying. So I think the whole scenario of business is in a limbo.
Yeah.
I think you have given enough examples to our viewers, and I know for sure you are truly a global citizen, and you work with a lot of chief executives, helping them in their journey. So I think the whole intention for me to bring you to Jeremy Blaine Live is to make sure that your message goes to some of these startups and SMEs which are struggling or not sure how to do things. They can actually come back to you and ask for your advice. So I think uh, this is one of the things that we should do actually.
Yeah, actually, what's very interesting after we did the piece of research last year that I'm talking about, what we realized was there how to model or thing to help organizations through it. We had to invent one because it's great. I can read McKinsey, I can read what Accenture is saying it, and they're looking at various component parts of this transformation, but not the whole thing. So actually, I had to invent a model which I call the ticking clock, which actually does help organizations through this step by step in terms of 3 stages and 11 steps. Just kind of very, very simply trying to bring things together, because I do reinforce the point. What's important is coming away from the terminology digital transformation and looking at whole business model transformation, and then considering what that digital, technological, human component part is and how that links to our customers for the future as well. And ultimately that's where we are. And I think one company in India, Tata Consulting, for example, well, in fact, the whole kind of organization is in a superb position to be the champion for Indian business outside of India, and to start actually sponsoring, and I know they do have these incubators within the organization that is sponsoring a lot of these smaller organizations within India. And I think it's time to give them that springboard and start to really shout out loud, here's what we can do. Here's what we can do versus kind of California and Mountain View. You need to talk to us.
That's right. I think that's a very good message that you have given. I think we can end our discussion today because digital transformation is a very, very huge subject, and it's huge, and it may be very different for different people. So I think you are here with us, and that is a very good thing because a lot of knowledge is there within your pedigree, your network, and anybody who wants to get into digital transformation can reach out to you, can reach out to us. We can connect you with that person, and you're already working with worldwide CXOs, helping many organizations. So I think with that we can end our discussion. Jeremy, it was certainly my greatest pleasure to talk to you, and we will catch up next Tuesday with some other interesting business subject.
Episode 2 coming your way. Thank you very much, CK.
Thank you and take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant from Akul Mac, and I welcome you all to Legal Matters. And today we want to discuss something very, very specific to India. And as you know that in India there is reservations for certain category of people, and sometimes if you are in government sector you are exposed to this, and if you are in private sector you are not really exposed to these things. So we will invite our expert today to know more about this reservation, uh, how it has affected us, and who is eligible. So let me invite my friend from Ahmedabad, the great lawyer, Mr. Jeet Bhatt.
Thank you, Chandrakant, and I'm looking forward for this session. So, how was the Christmas holidays treating you?
Well, it is good to be at home and celebrating Christmas with family rather than going out and going outside in this COVID situation. So we are comfortable at our home.
Very good, Jeet. So, I think our listeners and viewers would like to know first, what is this reservation and how this impact the society by and large. So, you can just start by giving your inputs on this reservation.
Yes, Chandrakant. In fact, it's a very important topic in this and reservation in public sector, civil services, government departments, and also in public and private educational institutions, uh, which reserves certain seats for the socially and educationally backward classes, the scheduled caste, and the scheduled tribe. Now, basically, if you see under the Constitution, which guarantees right to equality to every citizen under Article 14, but this right to equality also means that equals have to be treated equally, and unequals cannot be treated equally because you need different layers wherein you can't treat the topmost layer of the society with the bottommost layer of the society. That is not the concept of equality. Also, under Article 15 and 16, which is also regarding the right to equality, it provides that the state cannot deny the equality of the equal opportunity only on the basis of race, caste, sex, religion, etc. But it also under the subclause 15 clause 3 and 16 clause 4 of the Constitution provide that nothing in these clauses would prevent the state from laying down certain policies to benefit these backward classes and socially and educationally backward communities, as well as it can make provisions for women and also for physically handicapped people, because because a well-built person cannot and a physically disabled person, you can't treat both of them equally because both needs different parameters. A physically handicapped person cannot compete with a uh, with a with a normal person. So therefore, these backward communities, these physically disabled people, even including women, they need certain measures to bring them into the mainstream, and therefore that is what is known as the right to equality. Because if we deny them these treatments, then we are not treating them equal, and we are not providing them the platform which would bring them into the mainstream and which would alleviate their condition and bring them to the uh, which will give them the proper fundamental rights which they deserve. So therefore, reservations are not an exception to the right to equality, but they are a facet of the right to equality, and they foster equality, and therefore they are provided under the constitutional framework. And there is a national commission for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, which is provided under Article 338 of the Constitution. And uh, when the Constitution was drafted, there was a constitutional scheduled caste list which was created in the year 1950, which prescribed for around 1108 castes, which are which are termed to be as scheduled castes, and there are around 7 termed as scheduled tribes. So the list is provided under this list, and they are to be provided reservations as per their population in different parts of the country. So reservation is provided in public employment, civil services, government departments, and also in all public and private educational institutions. So it is provided for seats reserved in educational institutions, for seats to be filled in public employment, and also provided for promotional avenues. Uh, Normally, we see around 15% seats are reserved for scheduled caste, around 7 to 8% are reserved for scheduled tribes, and around 27% seats are reserved for other than backward class, that is OBC, which is also which is derived from socially and educationally backward classes. So in 1979, it was felt that apart from SC and ST, there are several other backward classes which are not part of the mainstream in the society. And therefore, a Mandal Commission was set up in the year 1979, which studied the entire country and various castes and classes, and came to the conclusion that there are around more than 3,700 classes which are backward classes, which are socially and economically backward. And they provided that some reservation should also be provided for them. And ultimately, it led to the famous case of Indra Sani, which is also known as Mandal Commission case, wherein in 1992, the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court uh, upheld the reservation for the backward classes, but provided a ceiling limit, saying that reservation in no case can be more than 50% of the available seats. So reservation provided for the backward communities like scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and OBCs, the SEBC, cannot be more than 50% in any state in the country for the available seats. So this type of reservation for backward classes is also known as vertical reservation, because what has happened is that then reservation is also provided for women, also for physically handicapped candidates, also for ex-servicemen, and for relatives of freedom fighter. So this reservation, if you calculate with the vertical reservation for SC, ST, and SEBC, which comes to around 49%, and then add 33% for women, 3% for physically handicapped, and so and so for these people, ex-servicemen, it would become 80 to 90%. So what the Supreme Court held is that there are two types of reservations. One is vertical reservation, the other is horizontal reservation. So vertical reservation is for the backward classes, and horizontal reservation is also known as special reservation, is for women, physically handicapped, ex-servicemen, etc. So the special reservation for women physically handicapped is termed as horizontal reservation, and it cuts across the horizontal reservation. So it does not increase the reservation beyond 50%, but what it does is it cuts across and it is compartmentalized. So, in order to understand this better, I would give an example. So, for example, if there are 100 seats available for, say, a post of police inspector, and 51 seats are for open category, and 49 seats are reserved for backward communities like scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and OBC. Now, if there are women, 33% reserved seat for women, then from 100 total seats, 33 seats would be reserved for women. But this would not mean that 77 other seats are reserved for men alone. Women can compete with men in open category as well as in reserved category. But the requirement is that 33% seats have to be filled of women. It cannot be less than that. So 33% seats for women will have to be filled. Now, if we look into the compartments, say for example, for open category, so 51 seats for open category, wherein, as per the judgments of Supreme Court, even the reserved category and the backward category can compete. And if they, on their own merit, are selected into the open category, then their numbers in their reserved category would not be depleted, or it will not affect them. Because in open category, there is no reservation. So any person being in any caste or tribe or in any community can compete in the open and general category. And if he is selected on his merit in open category, then that person would. Uh, so the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and OBCs uh, reservation seats do not get affected. So they compete with the general category. So likewise, for 51 seats to be filled in open category, the 33% of 51 seats would be 17 seats. So 17 seats in open category will have to be filled by women. And if so what has to be done in the and what is done actually in the employment or agencies is that they create a first merit list of say around 100 or 120 candidates, who have been selected in accordance with merit and in accordance with their caste reservation. So out of that, first 51 would be the general category. They are appointed as per their merit. They are in the top. So if from that 51, they will identify that whether there are 17, so that is 33% women, 17 seats of women are there or not. So if there are 17 women in that list of 51, then that horizontal reservation is complete. 33% seats are there, and women categories reservation is complete. So there is no need to further add more women category into it. But suppose, say for example, if there are only 10 women and 17 seats for women are reserved as per 33% reservation, then what is to be done is that from that list of 51, because there is a shortfall of 7 women, these 7 men who are selected at the bottom will have to be deleted. And from that list of 51 towards the end list, 7 women will have to be identified who are in accordance with their merit. And if 7 women are found, then those 7 women, in though they are below in the select list, but they will, because of this reservation, they will find place in the top 51. And if 17 women are found, then that list is complete, and then those 51 persons can be appointed. Likewise, for scheduled caste, say for example, 15 seats are reserved for 15% reservation. So 33% will have to be reserved for women. So that would come to around, say, 5 seats. So if 5 seats are reserved for women, and in that list of 15 for scheduled caste, if 5 women are there, then that 33 reservation is complete. But say for example, there's 5 women are not available in the top 15 for list of scheduled caste, then the bottom, say for example, 2 women are there and out of 5 seats. So then the list will have to be seen, and 3 women will have to be picked, which are of scheduled caste and which will have to be brought into that list of 15.
So Jeet, I think
Yes, sir.
you are explaining the horizontal and vertical. I think this gets quite complex, and that is a
Right.
challenge as a country we have. For example, you mentioned that there are more than 4,000 different caste categories which are covered under reservation. I will like to draw your attention to one aspect which is related to getting the person into the area where you want him to be. Basically, the reservation is to bring the equality among everyone, all citizens of India. That was the motive behind getting the reservation done. However, you can allow this person to get into this category, but you can't allow him to succeed when he actually passes through an examination, for instance, as an example. So let's say, and then, as you grow in life, your complexities of handling situations also grows along with the age. So when you're in school, then there is no problem. There is a reservation because everybody is going to study the same thing. As you grow in your education, and how far you can go is basically determined by how much you can how many exams you can clear. So you can get into management, you can get into MPhil, you can get into PhD. All that is determined by how many exams you can clear. The whole point is that if your score is less, then obviously you will not clear the exam. So you give the reservation, get people from all these 4,000 different categories and subcategories and the general category together so that everybody is equal. But when they go through the examination filtration, then many of these people who do not have reached that point based on meritocracy will not be able to cross that threshold. So I think, in my opinion, as a layman, I feel that I think this is not a right method of bringing equality. What is your opinion on that?
Well, as you said, meritocracy ultimately suffers because, especially in educational institutions, we find that a lot of deserving candidates are not given seats in top institutions, and less deserving candidates of uh, uh, these reserved classes get appointed. But basically, that is the policy which has been established in this country since the constitution was drafted. And uh, Therefore, it is not correct to say that this policy is flawed or it is not correct. In fact, affirmative action is required. And because when you see the condition of what these communities was when when we became independent, it was terrible. They had no freedom, they had no rights, they were treated in extreme bad situations. So it was necessary to elevate their condition. Therefore, this reservation policy was provided, and it has consistently grown, though it should decrease because since 70 years we can't keep on increasing these reservation policies because ultimately it affects meritocracy. But with regards to employment, if you see, then this applies only to government and the institutions which are funded by government. So, which amounts to only 10% uh, in the entire sector if you consider in India. So, rest of the 90% of SC and ST uh, and uh, uh, and tribe population is employed in private sector where there is no need for reservation. So education is what is important, and yes, to an extent, uh, ultimately the government will have to decide rather than increasing and expanding the scope of reservation. It should ultimately bring it to meritocracy. But in order to curb this reservation, what they have provided is for the term called creamy layer. So the creamy layer, so those whose situation has increased or has been better, improved in last these so many years. So whose families annual income is more than 8 lakhs. So those other than backward classes, so socially and educationally backward classes, who otherwise would get the reservation, would be kept out of this reservation if they are in the creamy layer. So therefore, those communities whose situation has improved over the years and whose income is better or whose parents are in government jobs or who have good jobs, their kids would not be entitled to reservation. So that is one area where the government has actually attempted to curb or restrict this reservation policy for them. And also gradually, if these communities' lifestyle, their condition improves, then a lot of communities can be delisted from this list of around 5,000 communities which come under the other than backward class, and ultimately we can reduce this percentage of reservation and give more weightage to meritocracy. But this policy is correct. I think they require this reservation, and this is enshrined in the principle of equality. Therefore, it is not correct to say that this policy is not good or bad.
All right, Jeet, I think when you present this logic, I think it looks logical. But I think at the same time, 4 to 5 generations have passed after we got independence in 1947. And initially, if I'm not mistaken, the reservation law was applicable for first 10 years, but then it has been extended continuously. And now it looks like that it is the right of the people. For instance, if I remember when I was small and in school, I learned, and I remember that very hard coded in my memory, that the president of India's is from one of these segments, and his daughter is applying for a reservation. So I think probably that those kind of things which are being corrected now, as you rightly said, that if you're in a creamy layer, your family income is more than 8 lakhs, then you're not deserving candidate to get the reservation. So I think this is great for clarifying all these things. However, I think somehow we have to bring the meritocracy also, because India is a very big country. We have to increase the amount of business people do, amount of jobs they have, whether private or public sector jobs, and that is the only way to bring the equality. That is my opinion as a layman.
No, absolutely. You are right. Ultimately, meritocracy should never suffer in any country. So, because otherwise, the best brains of this country would not want to live in this country. They would want to go abroad and settle there. So, yes, the premier institutions in this country, if they are also compelled to have this reservation policy, that affects. But then, uh, so some institutions which are the premier institutions should not be compelled to have this reservation policy. So yes, that can be a way forward to
There's another
meritocracy.
point I would like to make here, Jeet, and it's very realistic. I'm coming from the ground reality. Um, Many of these guards and very low-end workers in our society who guard our buildings and places and all that, those are basically from certain state in India, and they are not belonging to the reserved category. Yet they live in a very, very pathetic situation because their income is so less, and they are forced to work as a laborer or a small menial job, leaving their family behind because they have nothing to do in their own state. So their situation is quite bad, and they have no reservation to help them also. I think if you look at some of these category of people who are below poverty line, but yet not covered by any schemes under reservation, their their situation is also very bad. I think we have to look at as a country and as one society where we have to treat everyone equal. So I think, what is your opinion on this kind of problems that we have?
So yes, Chandrakant, you are absolutely right because based on economic condition, there can't be reservation. That is what is had been held in the landmark judgment of Dasani. So even if the government wants, they can't provide for reservation based on your economic condition. So even if you are below poverty line, there can be certain measures which would help to elevate your condition, and government can launch programs. And there are lot of programs for below poverty line people. But based on because of your economic condition, you cannot be you cannot have or you cannot demand any seats reserved for you in educational and public employment. So that is one drawback. But I think the country is looking forward for having reservation. And if I'm not wrong, there is some constitutional amendment which is to be brought in where which provides for reservation to economically backward classes. And I think ultimately over the years, if the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes condition improve, then ultimately the government can only think of having an economic reservation only for economically backward people. So their condition can improve over the years.
Yeah, I think the government has started 10% reservation in addition to what we already have for the economically backward people, and
Right.
cut across all category of people, whether they are whatever caste, creed, religion they are. So they are all covered under that, but that is only 10%. So I think gradually to improve the scale of what we have today in our society, I think the 10% can increase by certain percentage, and the reserve category can reduce by certain percentage depending on how the situation is. And I fully agree with you. When the independence was granted, then the people from certain segment of the society, they were not having any land with them. At that point in time, the measure of wealth was predominantly land, because there was nothing else for you to talk about. But that brings myself also in that same category, because we were city dwellers. We didn't have land. But I'm not talking about those kind of people who are similar to me. But then the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe did not have a provision to even have a land. So I think in those days the reservation was very relevant. I personally feel it is not so relevant now, because the government jobs are 10% and 90% are your entrepreneurship. That means if you are smart, you can succeed. And I can share my experience also with you, Jeet. I've been in the industry for 27 years. I've never worked for government or any public job. Uh, we have had very fantastic experience, and we don't even know who was the other person who was working for you. So I think in the private sector, nobody talks about these things, but reservation is there in the government sector. And you have any last word on this?
Uh, well, you are right, and it is good that wherever you have worked, in your experience, you have not found any discrimination. But I don't completely agree that in private sector there is no discrimination or they are not looked down upon. In fact, I think in the 90% of private sector where these people are employed, there is discrimination and there is subjugation of these castes. So which requires some, but yes, ultimately, uh, yes, if there is if the casteist mentality of this country goes away, and then yes, then there, I don't think there would be any such deprivation or any discrimination for them.
Actually, you are right. I was just thinking about when you were saying these things, I was thinking about discrimination at workplace. It's predominantly in certain states. For example, if you look at Tamil Nadu, they the divide is so huge that it is only Brahmin or non-Brahmin. So here you talk about OBC, SC, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, but the divide is so huge over there that it's all the top layer, and everybody else is a lower caste. So I think, but even in places like Chennai, the prominent places in Tamil Nadu, I have not seen too much of discrimination. It used to be there 20 years back. Gradually, it is going away. I think all of us, people who are educated and well placed, should not follow any discrimination of any sort or of any kind, and treat it very openly, like treat other human equal to yourself, even if they are working for you, or if you're working for somebody, you should get the same treatment across. So I think with that
Correct.
we can end our discussion today. It is a very difficult subject to discuss, but we wanted to bring this to you, to our listeners and viewers, and we welcome all inputs, because today you have heard two sides, where I am of the opinion that we should gradually reduce reservation, and Jeet is saying that we should continue with it until unless we are very sure that everybody is equal. So I think there are two sides in this discussion. Like to know your comments, and please engage with us, and we can put your comments in the next episode with Jeet. So thank you, Jeet, for joining us, and we will catch up next Thursday.
Thank you, Chandrakant, for having me.
Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant from Akulmak, and welcome to the Legal Matters. And in today's session, we would like to discuss about one of the recent order from Supreme Court about how to appoint election commissioner for state elections. It's basically totally went unnoticed because of the Bengal election and so much news coming from Bengal. This particular order is very important for our democracy, and to discuss this further, let me invite my friend from Ahmedabad, Mr. Jeet Bhatt.
Thank you, Chandrakant, for inviting me and for allowing me to speak on this topic. Yes, it's a very important judgment delivered on 12th of March by the Supreme Court in the matter of State of Goa versus Fozia Imtiaz Sheikh. And certainly it is very important with respect to the democratic process and the conduct of free and fair elections, which form the bedrock of the democratic country. So certainly I'm looking forward for the discussion on this judgment.
Yes, Jade. In fact, election commission is a very important aspect of our democracy, because during the election, when the elections are being conducted, election commission really is the government. They own everything during those period of a month or so in a particular state or in a particular area where the elections are going on, and election commissioner of that election is the de facto ruler of that particular state for those many days. So Supreme Court has ruled that you cannot have government officials as election commissioner. What is the impact of that, and how it affects us, and what are the long lasting implications of this particular ruling? We would like to know from you.
Yes, Chandrakant. In fact, what the Constitution envisages is that to have a independent, impartial body, which is known as the Election Commission of India, with respect to the Lok Sabha and the state legislature elections. With respect to the municipal and panchayat and corporation elections, there is a state election commission. So there are two election commissions. One is the Election Commission of India, and the other is the State Election Commissions. The provisions for both are different, but the purpose and the effect is similar, and uh, the purpose is to conduct a fair and impartial and free election, because that is the most important aspect of a democratic country. So, in furtherance of this purpose, these two election commissions are set up under the Constitution, and State Election Commission overlooks the entire elections with regards to the municipal councils, the municipal corporations, and the panchayat. Now, the power given to these election commissions under both the Election Commission of India and the State Election Commission is the superintendence, direction, and control over the entire conduct of the election procedure. So they play a very important role in our constitutional setup and also our democratic setup. And as you know, we have a three-tier democratic system, wherein the central government is at the central level, the state government at the state level, and the local government bodies, which are either a gram panchayat, a municipal council, or a municipal corporation, based on whether it's a village, a smaller urban area, or a larger urban area, respectively. So every larger urban area will have a municipal corporation. A smaller to larger intermediate urban area would have a municipal council, and the villages would have a village panchayat, because that is the principle of Swaraj, and which was envisaged and developed by our national, the father of our nation, Gandhiji, who believed in the concept of Swaraj so much that the entire freedom movement was also based on this very important principle of Swaraj, self-rule. So every smallest town, village, smaller urban area, larger area, state, country, it has a elected government and representative who work for them and for the betterment of every area of the country. So therefore, based on this principle, the the functions of election commission are absolutely important. Now, how this judgment and how this matter reached the Supreme Court is also very interesting. Is because the is the governor of Goa had on 3rd November 2020 appointed the law secretary of the government of Goa, a member of the IAS, as the state election commissioner uh, to fulfill the duties as the election commissioner. Now, the municipal elections for municipal councils were to be held in the month of uh, February 2021 in Goa, but they were postponed by the election commissioner due to COVID, and it were to be held in April 2021. But on 4th of February 2021, the director issued a notification with respect to reservation for women and other backward candidates, and also for delimitation with regards to wards. Now, this was issued, uh, which came to be challenged before the High Court, because it provided for the percentage of reservation not in accordance with the constitutional provision, because the constitution prescribed that not less than one third of the seats should be reserved for women. So one third means 33%. So what this notification provided is, where there were 20 seats, 6 seats were reserved for women. So 6 seats out of 20 would be around 33, less than around 31 to 32%, but it would be less than 33%, 33.33. So the Bombay High Court on this issue uh, gave a detailed judgment saying that this violates the provision of the Constitution, because this is not in accordance with the percentage prescribed, as the Constitution provides it shall not be less than one third of the total number of seats. So if it is 20 and there has to be a fraction, so if 6 is say 31%, then it is less than 33%. So then you have to make it more than 6, so you have to make it 7. So similarly, if there is 25 total seats and you provide for 8 seats, so that is again not 33%. So if there is a fraction, so say 7.33 or 7.6, then you have to make it 8. Or if it is 8.33, you have to make 9 seats, because it can't be less than 33%. So this is what the Bombay High Court held. But what interesting aspect also, and what the Supreme Court held, was that there was an overreach of the process of law. What the SEC and the director did in that matter, the commissioner, that the High Court had reserved the matter for final hearing on 22nd of February 2021. Now, on 22nd February 2021 at 9 a.m. in the morning, they issued a notification declaring the election to be conducted. So, whenever a notification for commencing of the election is already declared, the High Court is bereft of its power to exercise or to even hear the matter, entertain the matter, as per the provisions of the Constitution itself. Because what the Constitution provides is that the election, once commenced, has to be quickly ended and ultimately resulted into the result has to be declared. And if there is any illegality or anything, if any person is affected or aggrieved, then he has a remedy to challenge it by way of an election petition, which is also prescribed under the acts. So the elections should go smoothly. The election should not be interrupted by approaching courts other than what is prescribed under the law. And therefore, an election once completed, only thereafter illegalities can be challenged by way of an election petition. So this was what is provided. So for the High Court not to entertain the SEC and the director on 22nd of February in the morning 9 a.m. when the offices start at 9:30, they started their office early and only to see that the High Court does not entertain and decide this matter, they issued this notification commencing the election. And this was done again going against the statement made by the Advocate General of the state, who said that we will not do it. So despite that, they issued this notification in the morning, and this is what the division bench of the Bombay High Court in the held against them, saying that this is malice in law and this is trying to overreach the process of court, and still declared this notification of 4 to 2021 to be bad, illegal, and against the provisions of the Constitution with respect to the reservation of seats for women. Now, this matter reached the Supreme Court as the state of Goa preferred an appeal under Article 136 of the Constitution. And the Supreme Court, in its judgment on 12th of March, clearly held certain aspects which are most important. And it said that the appointment of the state election commissioner, of an officer of the government, is a violation of the mandate of the Constitution, because a state election commissioner is appointed under Article 243K, and 243K provides that the superintendent's direction and control of the preparation of electoral rolls, the conduct of all elections to the panchayat and to the municipal council shall be vested in the state election commission. So so his role is very important and crucial because he undertakes the entire superintendent's direction and control of the entire election process. Also, what is the Supreme Court interpreted the provision was that he cannot be removed from his service except in accordance to the procedure which is provided for the removal of a High Court judge. So the for removal of a High Court judge, the impeachment proceedings are so there should not be any threat on them that they can be removed at the whims. They are not serving um, uh, at the whims and fancies of the government. So therefore, this protection is given to state election commissioner as well. It is also provided that his conditions of service are also not to be varied to his disadvantage after his appointment. So once he's appointed, he cannot be removed unless by a procedure by which a High Court judge can be removed, and his conditions of service also cannot be varied to his disadvantage. So these are the protections given to him because of the nature of his function and duties that are imposed upon him by way of the constitutional provision and the importance attached to his position. So therefore, the role is absolutely independent, impartial, and neutral. And if he is a government employee, then that violates the mandate under the Constitution. And therefore, the Supreme Court in this matter also provided and held, I may just read the important para of the Supreme Court judgment, which Supreme Court says that the most disturbing feature of these cases is the subversion of the constitutional mandate contained in Article 243K of the Constitution. The state election commissioner has to be a person who is independent of the state government, as he is an important constitutional functionary who is to oversee the entire election process in the state for panchayat and municipalities. The importance given to the independence of a state election commissioner is explicit from the provision for removal from his office made in the proviso to clause 2 of Article 243K. Insofar as the manner and the ground for his removal from the office is concerned, he has been equated with a judge of a high court. Giving an additional charge of such an important and independent constitutional office to an officer who is directly under the control of the state government is, in the view of the Supreme Court, a mockery of the constitutional mandate. So, therefore, the Supreme Court declared that the additional charge given to the law secretary to the government of the state flouts the constitutional mandate of Article 243K. The state government was directed to remedy this position by appointing an independent person to be a state election commissioner at the earliest, and such person cannot be a person who holds any office or post in the central or any state government. It was also made clear that henceforth, in all state election commissioners appointed under Article 243 in the length and breadth of the country in India have to be independent persons who cannot be persons who are occupying a post or office under the central or any state government. And if there are any such persons holding the post of state election commissioner in any other state, such person must be asked forthwith to step down from such office, and the state government concerned be bound to fulfill the constitutional mandate of Article 243K by appointing only independent persons to this high constitutional office. And the direction contained were given under Article 142, which power the Supreme Court has to give directions which have to be complied to do complete justice in the case. So this is a very important direction given by the Supreme Court. And as far as the state election commissioners are concerned, I am aware even in Gujarat, the IAS officer is appointed as the state election commissioner. So he will also have to now forthwith be removed, and an independent person will have to be appointed. And this will have to be done in the entire country. So absolutely important, wonderful judgment of the Supreme Court upholding the values of democracy in this country and also advancing it by having independent persons appointed in such an important constitutional posts. So certainly a very important judgment delivered by the Supreme Court.
Jeet, thank you so much for explaining this, the entire judgment. It is very important. And for the viewers, I like to explain that, in our democracy, we never have purposely not kept the even numbers in our parliament and in our assembly, because if you have even numbers and if you divide them by one third or half or something like that, then again there will be issues which will arise and will create confusion between uh, opposition and ruling party, because then if there are numbers which are equal, and we all know, all the simple mathematicians will know that if you have an even number, it is divisible by 2 or 3. So that is why all the seats in all the assemblies are kept at odd numbers, and that is when this issue comes. When you divide the seats odd numbers, these are not divisible perfectly. So if you have one third, for example, then it will be some decimals. If you have two
Right.
thirds, again it will result into some decimals. So I
Right.
think it's a no brainer for a common person that, why don't we resolve it. But I think in a country like India, where everything goes up to Supreme Court and people cannot resolve logical things, so even this one has gone into Supreme Court, and now Supreme Court has called it, said that if you have a situation where you have one third is like you mentioned, J, 6.33, that 0.33 is an infinite number, you cannot solve it from
Right.
mathematics standpoint, so make it 7. So I think it is
Right.
so logical and so clear, and now it has become a ruling. And the second part, which is very crucial, is that you have to have an independent person as election commissioner, and I'm sure it will affect everyone, in even the general election it will affect, because now you cannot have IS officers replacing and taking over these roles. So what is, in your opinion, will be an independent person? Have you ever given a thought about that?
So the constitution provides that the appointment has to be made by the governor. But what is important and what has been recommended is that there has to be sort of a collegium system where the governor, the and some independent authority persons, and also the leader of opposition should all brainstorm and decide on an independent person who has to be appointed. So it can't be now with this judgment. It can't be any person who is employed with the state or the central government. So there are, in some states, even retired high court judges have been appointed. So that is also a good option to have a retired high court judge as the state election commissioner. So that can also be thought of. But let us see now with this judgment how the government is to come up with independent persons.
So I think it's pretty good because fair and impartial elections can be conducted. There will be no influence on any side. You cannot accuse a person or anything of that sort. In our Indian politics, a lot of mudslinging happen before the election and also after the election, and that continues until the next election comes, and the cycle repeats. So I think some of these activities can be reduced. I am hoping for that, and this judgment will help us there. So, Jeet, thank you very much for coming and explaining this to our viewers today. It is a very important judgment as far as the Indian democracy is concerned.
Absolutely, Chandrakant. Thank you for having me.
So we will catch up again next week on something more interesting with regard to legal systems and any new ruling which is coming from Supreme Court. I say you have a nice week ahead, and I say goodbye for today, only to catch up next week again.
Thank you. Goodbye to you too.
Hello, welcome to Akulmek Live. I'm Kanchan Verma, and today in this episode, we'll be discussing about public relation activities, and we are doing a series on that. So we have a guest, Ritu Gupta, who is the CEO of Four Season PR Agency. So we would like to welcome her. Hello, Ritu. How are you? Welcome to our show today.
Thank you, Kanchan. Thank you for welcoming to the show, and absolutely fine. Thank you so much.
So today we are discussing about keynote address, which is a crucial part of public relation activity. So first of all, what is really keynote has importance when we are doing a public relation activity?
Okay, Kanchan, like writing is important in public relations, so speaking is also important because it's part of communication. And speaking at various events, seminars, or in your organization where you invite media people, other related guests, it's very important because, speaking at events where customers are likely to attend helps position you as a leader or innovator in your field. As a business owner or leader or building reputation as an expert also builds the reputation of your business and draws new customers. It is with public relations, and in public relations we have various clients where they want us to let people know what their business is all about, where they want us to let we the PR experts make their image by speaking. So it's important. Speaking is important.
So, what are those platforms when it is become very mandatory for a PR practitioner, professional to really take advantage of speaking to his clients or public, to the public in general?
Okay, so the first important aspect is when we're dealing with media, because it is the media who makes and breaks the image. So it's very important to handle the media. So make your reputation in front of media. So this is like when you have the media visit your organization, or when you are holding a press conference, you're talking to media, speaking in front of them. And then there are at times where you go out and do the licensing, where you attend various business functions, dinners, and that time what you are speaking is important, and various seminars where you are invited to speak about certain ideas. Like, for example, I just want to give you an idea. Before the COVID started, I was invited in Ashoka Hotel, and where various people from different universities of Delhi and NCR were invited, and we were invited to speak that why it is important for students, if they do not get admission in government universities like BU, why it is important for them to continue with their study and come to private universities. And I was told to speak about mass communication. So it's a kind of a subtle form of marketing also. So you should know your subject, you should know the clients you are dealing with. So at that time I was speaking with students and their parents. So it was speaking about the education. So we have various things which are happening all around the world, globe, and even now we have various sessions on Zoom where we speak to the clients, and it's a kind of a get together on Zoom, but you have to build reputation of your product.
Right, you have mentioned a very valid point, because we in public relation do write-ups for the product and for services which we offer. But when we also take advantage of any seminars or trade fair or any event which is being organized, to take the opportunity to speak to our audience directly. Now the question comes that every PR professional, is it mandatory for him or her to be a public speaker? Because anybody who is good in communication or good in public speaking can only handle this portfolio. So is it first question is whether it is important to be a public relations public speakers. And another thing that, are you if you're not, so do you get in-house training to become a public relation, or it is mandatory for any public relation professional to be a first public speaker? What is your opinion?
Okay, so it is not mandatory to be a public speaker, because I've seen people who write very well. They are at times very shy of speaking in front of public. And also, the top management people, at times they do not want to speak in front of public. So they have their PR practitioners or some person from the PR team who goes out and represents the management. So it's very common that the management people don't speak themselves. Also, I have seen many people from PR industry, they are very shy of speaking. So, you gain confidence. It's just a game of confidence. You need to have confidence. And because PR people, they know everything about the business of their client or the organization they are working in. It is just the confidence of dealing with people. So confidence builds up over the period of time. And once you are there in front of the people on the podium speaking to them, it is very good, because these events are valuable for any public relational practitioner, because they are promotional opportunities. Even if you don't have an invitation or as a top speaker, but even if you have an invitation of speaking, you simply build a reputation by having your business name or logo in the event listing, or delivering a presentation about your company's innovation, new product, new idea, strategy. Additionally, these events provide valuable networking opportunities. So these are very good networking opportunities. So one should build up the confidence of speaking.
Well, at this point of our program, I would like to really mention about any of the case study or any public speaker or any PR professional who has done some wonders even while speaking. And once he has given a keynote address, and
Yes.
we really got a very good response regarding that product or services. Can you discuss any case study of that?
Yes. So it's Mr. Late Alec Padensi. He was a theatre personality also, and he headed Linta's advertising agency for a quite number of period of time, many years. So later on, these advertising agencies also got into the business of public relations. And there was an event where Mr. Padensi spoke about why it is important for everyone to do public relations in India. So the idea he sold to people, the way he was speaking, it was very mesmerizing. It was very good, wonderfully presented. He had command over his language, and he knew what he was speaking, and the way he answered all the questions. That was something I really looked up to. That okay, he could. I mean, he was getting connected with his guest, with his speaker. So I mean, not the speaker, with the invited guest. And number two, I should mention here is our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. He is a very good speaker, and the public relation work he's doing is wonderful. So that's also building the image of the country.
Well, lastly, I would like to ask you one question. In case a layperson like me who is not from public relation domain, how I would prepare my keynote address? What are the parameters I should take care while addressing to the target audience?
Okay, so if the person is not from the PR industry, the person should know what the business is all about. Basically, the basic of the business. The person should know the basic of the business, and he or she should be told what is the event all about. Why do they have to speak? What is the objective of their speaking? So that should be told to the person. The person should be given a
Yes, so we are in, I think there's a loss of connection for a while. We will connect. Yeah, so we were talking about the parameters where we require.
Yes. So I repeat again.
Yes.
So, content, the person, the one who has to speak, should be given brief about the organization. What is the organization all about? What do they do? And why that particular event is being held where they have to speak? What is the objective? They should also, it is very important that they should also be given a printed literature about what the event is all about, what are they supposed to do, and what is the organization all about. And if the person is clear about all these three aspects, he or she can just speak about it.
Okay, it was great points we have discussed. Now, I would like to just ask you any last points you want to share with our audience regarding this this important aspect of public relation activity.
So the important aspect of the speaking and public relation activities that you should be, you should be reading a lot. You should be aware about what's happening around you, because anything happening around you is related with your business, your client. It can, so you should be aware about all the things happening around you, and you should have the confidence. Plus, being a good speaker, you should be a good listener also. It's very important to listen also. If you are a good listener, then only you can be a good speaker also.
Well, as usual, it is so wonderful to talk to you today regarding this aspect of public relation activity. We will be meeting again with some different thought-provoking topic in public relation domain. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care and thank you.
Hello friends, this is Chandra from Akul Mac Technologies. Welcome to Top Brass. Today we are joined by Mirav Klein Escher from Israel. She joins us from Tel Aviv, and she is a management consultant. She works with very large high-tech companies and help their business from Israel. Mirav, welcome to Top Brass.
Thank you very much. Thank you for addressing me and bringing interesting questions for thought.
It is our pleasure, Mirav. And as you know, we are in India and we are under total lockdown. So we have just finished 3 weeks and we are in the 25th day of lockdown. How does it look like for you in Israel?
We have a sort of lockdown too. We are restrained on certain subjects of how far can you go from your home and for what? For buying food, just 100 meters from your home. Otherwise, you get fined. And people stay at home, most of them. Most communities are staying at home, although we had all kinds of holidays here, and people are very much used to gathering in these holidays. So government and police are doing a lot of effort to keep people at home.
Okay, so since so many people are under lockdown, almost like 99% of the people, of the citizens of your country under lockdown, and I'm sure this is first time for everyone globally. Do you see any impact or any adverse exposure shown by the people because they are under lockdown?
Yes, surely. I live within Tel Aviv. There's a neighborhood called Jaffa, in which we live together, Muslims and Jews and Christians. And each of us have different holidays, and sometimes it is very difficult to actually behave by the rules. And sometimes also it's a feeling like the police isn't acting the same towards different communities, different religions, and this is very frustrating. And on that, there were occasions here in Jaffa, which is this neighborhood within Tel Aviv, in which there were real violence and a lot of angry people going out to the streets, frustrated and demonstrating against the way the police is acting towards them.
Okay, so this is serious. So did it escalate the COVID exposure because they were under protest?
It was only two days that later on everything became quiet again. There are tensions in Israel, like everyone knows, between Arabs and Jews and religious people and people who are not. So this brings up all these tensions again. Here in Jaffa, we are trying, I myself, I voluntarily work for these last 11 years in bringing up a bilingual school of Jews and Arabs kids studying together. So we're trying to see how we mend these tensions and how we help people understand that actually we're all together in this situation, and whoever won't cooperate and if we won't keep ourselves safe and our families safe, then we'll pay a very big price. So it takes a lot of energy to see that everyone is together and a lot of solidarity to help the poor people who have nothing to eat. So there are all kinds of organizations and just private people and communities that help one another, so that people on general and on holidays and elderly people who have no one that looks after them, people really are working very hard to help one another.
I think this is something very unique, and I think all the humanity, irrespective of their religion and their following, I think we should work together. Having said that, a lot of us are working from home and working from confinements. Do you see in your circle in Israel or in other parts of the world, there is a sentiment reduction with regard to business?
Yes, of course. First of all, the things that I do is managerial coaching, working with management teams, and working with the team leaders to strengthen their managerial concepts and insights. Working as a group, we use Zoom now a lot, and in the high tech and industry, it's very easy because people are used to having conversations like we're doing using Zoom and other applications, but still we miss the interpersonal touch and seeing and understanding and looking into your eyes is something that we can partially do, but not as a full in a way that we are used to and that we like. Really meeting, sitting together in one room when we can. Uh, it's a different experience. So and some businesses are taking there was a volume of the business taken down, and they need to see how they depart from some people or depart from specific things that they're doing. Expertise that they had, and they can go on doing that. So if I understood you right, I'm not sure if that's the sentiment or the business status that you were asking on.
Oh yes, I think the sentiments world over is slightly low at this point in time, and as you rightly pointed out, that the personal touch is important to feel the other person. But fortunately, we have tools like Zoom, and we can talk as much as you like, sitting in front of each other, thousands of miles away, and we will be completely secure in our surroundings because using technology we will not get any infection. The virus will not spread using Zoom, so I think we are safe. And so I fully appreciate what you're trying to say, that in any business face-to-face interaction is very important. Now, having said that, and you work with a lot of global companies, and you work with a lot of cross-border situations where you're based in Israel, but I think you're traveling world over to many countries.
Mhm.
What do you see from your point of view, what the governments of each country, whether it's Israeli or US or India or Japan, what they should do to bring the business sentiments up after this lockdown is lifted?
Yeah, I think, well, each one finds in each situation what he or she looks for. So for me, the kind of leadership that I'm for is the leadership that is striving to give people space and respect and see them in an equal status, although some are from different religions, different nationalities, different genders. And as I see, this is something that is going to be strengthened. And I also see, when I look at different leaders of countries and governments, I'm not too happy with my own government. Uh, uh, they don't follow the values that I believe in. I'm very much interested in women leaders, also in leading countries. And I see, we have Finland, we have Germany, we can see a few examples that are very interesting to look at. And maybe it has to do something with the fact them being women, and maybe it's not, maybe it's just a personality thing. But I'm very interested in the values that these leaders are promoting. And I do believe that leaders that really look for inclusion, look for how they connect between different communities, how they see how they're gonna deal with poor people that, of course, don't have the ability of going on with their lives and working and having enough, sometimes even not enough breath to see how they, uh, 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 see how this gap of a month or two that they have less income, how are they going to deal with that, and strengthening these or leaders, I think, need to see that these gaps aren't strengthened, that the classes, I think, in India and in Israel, we are both countries not in a good state of having huge gaps between different classes. And I appreciate leaders that really look in the eyes to everyone. And some of these leaders have even held press. How do you call that?
Press conference.
With press conferences with children, which is, I think, it's a message. It's a message to the world to see what do we appreciate, and giving time for families to see how they cope with this situation. And I think also leaders and managers within the industry, they don't have to be the leaders of the country, leaders of companies. I see different companies and different leaders within these companies, how they cope with this situation, how they keep on giving the employees a feeling of careness, of solidarity, of really trying to help people out to see how they manage in this situation. So my colleagues, the HR community, I see them work very hard to give tools and to share in a very widespread, it's not just each one working for this specific company. They really work as a community to see how we struggle and how we cope with these challenges. So this is something that I think is very strengthening in this situation. And when we try and see how we cope from here onward, I think we'll even get better at that. We should get better at coping together.
Yeah, certainly. I think what you're making, what you're saying right now, and the points that you're making are very valid. I think it's not only the government, it's also the leader of the society. They have to play a very, very vital and important role. I think the post-COVID world will be slightly different than what we had seen last year, that is in 2019. I think there'll be new ways, there'll be new strategies that people have to evolve. The new, for example, schools, I think that's the one industry which is hit very hard. So likewise, people going to office, they have to, find some other way of working from the office or working from home. So I think you're saying, you're making a very valid intervention, that it's not only the government. I think the top leadership and all managers have to play a very vital role together.
Sure. I really think they should give an example, and sometimes I find that within different companies we have better examples of leadership than what we have in government, and across the world, whoever leads Google and Amazon and other widespread global companies, they are the leaders of this world, not less than governments, and what's the example that they're giving for inclusion and solidarity, and seeing how we cope with these gaps between different classes and how we help each other, because at the end we're all interdependent. It's not that we can not look at what's going on in other industries or other classes, because we're all, and this is something I think this situation is strengthening very much, the understanding the inside of the interdependency.
Mirav, actually, it's my pleasure to talk to you. And one thing I like to say is that running a company is one sort of responsibility, but running a country is a totally different ball game. And not many people understand the diplomacy to run a company or run a country. But I think your points are very valid. And it was a great pleasure talking to you. You found time to join us from Israel. And I'm sure we will find another opportunity to talk to you to discuss something more after a few days.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste. Take care.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Akulmek Live, and I am your host today, Chandrakant. And today we have a very important subject. It's a global news. There is an Afghan crisis just brewing in the neighborhood. Especially, I'm an Indian, so it's my neighborhood, and the entire world is actually watching on the TV. You know what's going on. What we can learn from this crisis. To discuss this matter, I will be joined by a very eminent personality from UK. So friends, don't go anywhere. I'll take a short break and join back along with my guest. Hello friends, welcome back, and I'm very pleased and honored to have Neville Gund, the chairman of Mindfit Limited, joining us from UK this morning for him, afternoon for me. How are you, Neville?
Good morning, CK. Good morning, everybody. Yes, very well. Thank you very much. I'm about to go on a few days vacation, so very excited about that. And lots of news in the world that's ringing around our ears. Some good, some not so good. And yeah, I'm really excited to be talking about what we can learn from the Afghanistan crisis. I think everyone's spoken about over the next 20 minutes or so.
Absolutely, Neville. In fact, what is going on today? You know, it's like this. Since 80s, you know, since my childhood, I've been seeing a lot of people who are poking their nose in the Afghan affairs. First, it was themselves, then the Russians, then Americans, then everybody else. Then in between, India also started establishing infrastructure there, which we are still doing it. But it seems that the Afghan people don't want any one of us. So what is the learning? I think the message that I want to send personally is that what we should do if such a situation we encounter in our business by learning from this experience. What is your opinion, Neville?
Well, what I don't want to do today is talk about the political issues around Afghanistan, because frankly, I don't really know what they are. I don't even know if the politicians know what they are. But you're right. Let's look at the history. People poking at your affairs. What does it do for you? Does it nudge you along a better direction? Does it make you angry and be more defensive? Or are you smart enough just to listen and observe? And today I'm going to use 3 words. They all begin with a letter A. It's about being aware, assessing the situation, and taking action. So awareness, assessment, and action. And no matter what faces you, I think that's the best thing we can do. We can be aware of what's going on. So if people are poking and prodding at you from a distance, just be aware of it. And then assess what's going on. Is it going to be of any benefit to me? If it is, I need to do something with it. If it isn't, I need to do something with that too. And that's the action bit. And it's the taking action that's most important. And I'm not talking about military action as we've currently got, which is very defensive action in Afghanistan. I'm talking about action that's going to be effective for your business. So the simple thing, CK, does that make sense to you? Be aware, assess it, and take action.
Yes, Neville. In fact, I want to ask you, you might have seen it, I've seen it, you might have seen it a couple of times in your corporate career, is that if the senior management wants to bring about a change in your organization, they don't do it by themselves. They will actually ask an external agency to come and help them. You know, it's like this, you know, if some people need to be fired, you know, they can fire themselves. But no, they don't want to do that. What they want to do is they will ask one of these consulting companies and say that, hey, you come, you give assessment report, and then you fire these people. You know, this is exactly what is going on in Afghanistan. You know, they people should be driving themselves as per their whims and fancies and their culture and their traditions as their business, whatever they feel is right. but some of these people are calling external help, and this is going on since 1980s. I think this is exact correlation that I understood, Neville.
Yeah, you're exactly right, CK. And there are some similarities to bringing in a third party to help you do things. Maybe not because you're not very good at it, but maybe because you believe in that third party. And let's just look at the transition of Afghanistan. Irrespective of why the foreign organizations entered into Pakistan, they were there, and we were there, and what the intention was to help the company develop and transition, and effectively put down a threat to the rest of the world. And that's what goes on in business all the time. We're trying to eliminate the threats. And then there's this transition piece. So you go in and you help people do things, and then you transition out and you move away. And that's what the big four all companies do. I mean, a chief exec will say, we need help. So unlike Afghanistan, where you just went in, you're invited in. And the invitation comes in. But again, when you get a consultant coming into your organization, there's a lot of people in your organization that will fight like the Taliban. They will put up some barriers, and they will stop these people coming in and finding out what you do. Why? Because you see them as a threat. And frankly, I've been there, and I know you've been there, CK. In the first 2 or 3 instances, I saw them as a threat. After a while, frankly, I knew they were coming in. So, what's the point? I just give them everything they want to do. And they're only going to tell the senior executives, the people running the organization, allegedly, what they want to hear anyway. And frankly, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that was always good news, because I've already been telling them what's going on in the organization. So I was a bit of a maverick in my day, but telling people the truth. But the problem is, a lot of people can't handle the truth. So that's why you bring in these third party consultants in to come and tell you just exactly what's going on. But the key to this is, how do you transition out? And I've always found, CK, I don't know about you, that it's the transition piece which is so poorly executed that after about 3 or 4 years, we're talking about huge organizations here, but after about 3 or 4 years, you've just gone back almost to do the same thing you did 3 or 4 years ago. So there's been a temporary improvement. It hasn't been long lasting. There's been a lot of infighting. You could have lost some really good people along the way, along with Deadwood. But now you're 4 or 5 years further on. And to be honest with you, you're no further along your growth or your survival process. Does that story sound familiar to you?
Yes, it does. In fact, in the corporate world, what goes on is that we should be minding our own affairs, looking at our own castles, and making sure that all repair works are done internally. But, the senior management choose not to. I mean, the decision maker in the company, they will say, hey, I don't want to do this dirty job. If I have to hire people, I can do it. I will pay them $1 million, let them do it. Or maybe $10 million, let them do it for me. And I think the second question that therefore I have is, all the external agencies initially went in to control few things, but then later on they didn't want to stay there. But I think the excuse to stay there is that, hey, we guys are training them how to be democratic, how to make party system, how do you fight elections. I think it's been going on for last so many years. I think almost my age, since the time I've taken birth, I have been seeing this crisis, and first Russians and so I think it is like that. So if a company doesn't know how to do business, what external help can help them? First of all, they don't know. I mean, first of all, they have to know about it, why they are in business. So I think the second question, therefore, is, what is going on here? What the CEOs can learn from Afghan crisis? Is it something that they should look internally first in order to steer their company in the right direction, or they should ask for external help? What is your opinion, Nabil?
It's a really good question, CK, as ever. And the simple answer is, looking at Afghanistan, imposing change isn't going to work unless you can police that change. Unless you're there, we're going to see the change that we've seen from the Taliban coming in is that they are coming in firing guns. Now, if as a chief exec, that's what your intention is to do, and stand there with the equivalent of an AK-47 sitting on your desk, then that is your authoritative approach to change, and frankly, it's not gonna work unless you've got that rule of but you're gonna fire that gun. There's no threat here. This is a promise. I will shoot you. Okay, and that's what we're going through at the moment. That's the imposition that's happened, and indeed, that was the imposition that happened 20 odd years ago, when these foreign parties went into Afghanistan and said, we're going to help you change. Yeah. So a CEO needs to literally sit back and smell the roses, because there's this thing called the hearts and minds of the organization. And we're seeing it now in digital transformation. To me, there are very few companies that actually are understanding digital transformation, or indeed doing digital transformation. They're doing digital change, but for some, that means everyone's going online. Now, that's not a transformation, because all we're doing is doing exactly the same thing and trying to force it into an online situation. That's not a transformation. That's not even a change. That's actually saying we're setting ourselves up to fail, because in the digital world, we have to do things differently. And it's as simple as that. It's almost like, you're using a new golf club. You've bought this 7-iron, brand new 7-iron, and you're swinging it, and it doesn't feel like your 7-iron. Well, guess what? Because it isn't yet. You haven't got used to it. You haven't felt the different weight of the club. When you swing it, it's heavier. So you've got to use more power in the back lift. But the point is, until you recognize that, you're never going to use that club to the best of its abilities. You're still going to be using your old 7-iron rather than your new 7-iron. And I'm sorry for people that don't understand golf, but it's like anything else. If you start drinking your tea out of a mug rather than a cup, the tea is going to taste different, guaranteed, because it's coming out of a different piece of equipment. I mean, it's bizarre because it's the same tea. You've made it in exactly the same way, but our brain says, well, it's not a cup, it's a mug. And that's what we've got to do. It's as simple as that, really. That's what we've got to do. We've got to look at the transformation, and we've got to build and breed the hearts and minds solution. And this is going back to the 3 A's: being aware of what's happening, assessing the situation, and taking action. So if you start to impose change on the organization with a whip, and you literally walk around, I'm not physically saying you walk around your organization with a whip, but some people feel as though you're walking around the organization with the whip. You're doing the leadership bit, you're walking the talk, but people don't like the particular walk and the talk you're giving, because you're not engaging them, you're not empowering them, You're not educating them. You're not exercising their mind to say, come with me. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a different journey. But at the end of it, we're going to come out better. You know, and fundamentally, a leader's saying, trust me. And that's a big problem because not many people trust their leaders. Does that make sense, CK? You seen this around?
I think this is fantastic. I think it's a special correlation that we can learn from this Afghan crisis is that we need to look inwards and see where the problem is and then solve that problem rather than, I mean, if we can't solve the problem, there is no point in calling external help because in the end, it will turn up like Afghanistan because the people don't want democracy. And yet the rest of the world is trying to teach them democracy for last 50 years, but they simply don't want it. And I think you mentioned one very good point is that the Taliban came blazing guns, but I think in reality, you know, people accepted Taliban. You know, they willingly allowed them to come and overtake their country. This is what is happening. So this is a power struggle within the organization. So my question now, Naval, is, you know, when the CEO wants to change and his employees don't want to change in such a situation, what is his choice? What he should do? What is your thinking about exact correlation from Afghan crisis into this scenario where the CEO is trying very hard to bring the change, but the employees of the organization don't want to change? What he should do?
Well, I don't know if you can see clearly what's in the background. What you're saying is the CEO has a can-do attitude, the organisation has a can't or won't do attitude. This is common. I mean, this is why you change the chief exec. You know, you change the leadership. When you want to go in a different direction, you tend not to change anyone down the scope. You change at the top. And we don't see it often enough in big businesses, but we do see it in the smaller organizations where the chief exec has got sort of a 2 or 3 year tenure and then they're out because they haven't made change happen. But there is a simple answer here. You know, there are lots of leadership traits that we hear from time to time. All the leadership books say exactly the same thing. If you're going to embrace change in an organization, and that's what this new leader's been brought in to do, you have to get hold of the hearts and minds. You have to work out in the organization, and you need to pick out every single person and show them what's in it for them. Why this is a good thing to do. How to galvanize their focus on what they do. Because the likelihood is, if people are resisting change in an organization, then they're stunting their own growth. Now, I'm making a small assumption here that the change is good for the organization. It may not be good for you. I've worked in organizations in the past where people were let go. So it wasn't going to be, you know, we call it restructuring, re-engineering, downsizing, call it what you like, really. There are so many words in the dictionary that have been addressed to this. But it's a business process review, fundamentally. And the business process review does those 3 A's. They're very aware of what's happening. They assess what's going on and they take action. And typical business process reviews look on outcomes, outputs. What do we do as an organization? Really, really big question for a board, let alone a chief exec. Because if you ask many people on boards, it will take them time to explain what they do. More importantly, it will take them even more time to explain why they do it. In other words, what's in it for our customers? Why do our customers stay with us? There are other providers out there doing exactly the same thing. You know, I've got an iPhone, but there are 30 or 40 other smartphones that are out there. So why would I choose an iPhone? But my point is, the customer's always right. We've seen examples at CK. I mean, you can remember the Kodak example. Do you remember Kodak were literally the biggest photography company in the world. It was a monopoly. They had cameras and they had film and they had processing units all around the world. And digital cameras came along. And the interesting thing is, Kodak had a digital camera. They were one of the first because they were pioneering growth. And they said, this will never take off. So look what happened. All of our photographers out there, they're going to want the film, they're going to want the touch and the hard plates and they literally held on to a belief. And of course, customers said, so I don't have to just take 36 pictures and then send them away, and 48 hours later I get them back and think, kept my thumb over the lens. I've been there, Now you can take a picture and say, that any good? In fact, what you can do, even then, you could go click, 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 and pick the best one of a series of 10 because there'll be something slightly different. And that's what Kodak missed. They missed the versatility. They missed being agile, this word that is so often used these days that not many people really understand what it really means. It just means, being adaptable. If there's two paths, well, go down one path. If that path's got a dead end, so what? I know, I've now proved something. That wasn't the good choice. I now need to go and find out the next path. And then you go down that next path and all of a sudden you get 3 choices and you think, that's all right, I've done this before. If there's a dead end, I'm just going to come back and choose one of the other 2. And that's about being agile. And again, chief execs are not very agile. It's one-way system. So, coming back to your question, CK, as ever, it's not going to work. If a chief exec has got a very toxic arena in the organization, there's no point in imposing any sort of change. You need to go out there. I mean, what I would do is I would go out and find out who are the protagonists, who are the naysayers. And I would get them all in a room and I would say, okay, guys, take your best shot. I'm gonna explain to you why we should be doing this, and I want you to bash it down. Just give me all the reasons why it's not a good idea. And the interesting thing is, if you start to engage with people, honestly engage with people, and that's a lot of chief execs can't do that, because they don't have the trust of the organization. But you have to get that trust somehow. And the best way is to go in and say, look, if we continue like this, there will be no company. Look at the graphs, look at the numbers, look at the competition. What we've got to do is we've got to get this company in a better shape. And notice the language, what we've got to do. This isn't a dictatorship, this is not Hitler or any other Roosevelt or any other, top-down type of arena. This is an organization. It's a living and breathing organization. And as soon as people realize that, then you're going to get the best out of it.
I think I fully agree with you, Neville, and I think there is a lot of learning from what we keep hearing about Afghan crisis in the news. It is not directly affecting us, but since it is in the neighborhood of India, I think especially India being a large country can take the notice of this and can pick up certain indicators and apply in the business, especially a country like Afghanistan, which has very little production, very small amount of population, has zero significance at the moment on the world, except what we're hearing, the mayhem and the airport crisis and the Afghan crisis. Other than that, there is no production, there is nothing of that sort. So I think there are a lot of learning that we can pick up from this. And Naval has already told us that we have to remove the toxic environment in the organization. We need to do can do. As you can see in his background, he has put that very, very loud and very clear, the entire map of how do you convert from won't do to can do attitude. And this is exactly what we need. So Naval, thank you so much for joining and explaining this whole subject and how we can learn, all the companies and chief executives can learn from this Afghan crisis. I think you have explained beautifully. Thank you so much. Any last words you would like to add?
Well, not really. I mean, like anything else, good leaders learn from every situation, not just the situations they're in, but what's happening around them, that they may have no influence on or no impact on whatsoever. And the Afghanistan crisis, I mean, we're not putting two words together that no one else is using here. It is, I can see it in the distance on the TV. It says the Afghan crisis. It is a crisis. And people are making big of this crisis. And there are deadlines to be adopted. And now all the panic is we're not going to be able to do that in the deadline. Okay, well, do whatever you can in the deadline and try and negotiate your way out of other things. If we have to remember here, the Taliban are already saying that they are a different organization. They will be working within the Muslim arena, the Islamic arena, and they will be operating in their world, which is absolutely fine. That's what countries do. We operate in our world. You operate in your world. Hopefully, there's some common ground between us. And if there's common ground, then trade happens. So we've got no other experience of this changed manager that's coming in now, rather than what they're saying. So seeing is believing, And that's another thing about being a leader in an organization. People will see who you are by what you do. Not just by what you say, but by what you do. And that's the message. If you're going to be a change in your organization, let people see what you do, not just by saying it, but by demonstrating it, by doing it.
Thank you so much, Naval, for sharing your thoughts and your advices. I think these are very valuable and all of us can learn from all this. So friends, Naval is, I think, heading towards his vacation. So we wish him all the best and say that, you enjoy yourself, Naval, and we'll catch up with you after we have returned to the world from your camping trip.
Hello friends, I'm Kanchan Verma from Akulmek Technology and you are welcome to Top Brass. Today we have a very special guest, Ritu Gupta, who is a PR consultant and also having her own consultancy. So welcome to the show, Ritu. How's it going?
Thank you.
Everyone locked down days, how you're spending?
Well, it is, I'm very positive that what PM is doing is very good for the nation.
Correct, very nice. And I really feel very proud today morning when I heard his message that he said that all Indians are great and they are doing great, they are cooperating and they are showing their strength to the world. And I
Yes.
really felt very
Yes.
good. And I thought, let me also discuss with you and find out how you feel about that.
Yes, I feel very happy, and I heard the PM addressing the nation. And my analysis is that he has requested the Indian public that on 5th April, Sunday, 9 p.m. in the evening for 9 minutes, everyone should come out of the houses. They should switch off the lights, and they should come out of the houses and light a torch, flashlight, candle, or diya as per their wishes. Because PM has always been very positive. Now, this gesture of his, the request shows that he wants the Indian masses to come together and show their strength to the world, to everyone for the fight against corona. Since the day one of the lockdown, when the lockdown was announced, he has always been very positive. Narendra Modi ji knows the ground reality of the nation, and this is the way that he wants everyone to come together. And he has always stressed on social distancing, but not on emotional distancing. So this task, I may say, or the things we are supposed to do on Sunday evening, it's a kind of getting emotionally connected to the people who are the frontline workers. And yes, India is setting an example to the world that this way we can fight against corona. See, at the moment, corona has killed so many people around the world. So I think what Modi ji is requesting everyone, we should all follow what he says. This in a way is good for us, for the future generation, and for the country.
Correct. And the way he asks people to connect, to be connected, and the way he asks all young generation and old generation, and he has that ability to take everybody together. And moreover, when you just mentioned about the frontline professionals who are doing a great job, he also
Yes.
in his messages he also asks her to really pray for them. And I really salute them, the kind of work they are doing. These are all COVID warriors, and we should also help them, and we should always boost their morale so that they keep on doing great work. So at the same time, I also want to appreciate our leader, our prime minister, who is also very in a very simple way want to convey the message, which all messages are very important for the people, and we all should cooperate, and we are cooperating, and in fact, so we should all do more to come to, so that this whole situation will pass easily and we come out winner. What do you say?
Definitely. I agree with you, because PM has the leadership quality. I mean, this is the first PM in India who's so dynamic and has the leadership quality. In fact, in the last Mann Ki Baat, he expressed his gratitude and thanks for all the people, like the doctors, even the bank staff, like the farmers, and the frontline workers, also the nurses and the other people, even the sanitation people also. So I think we should listen to him, follow what he says, and this is for the benefit of the country, because right now we are going through a very bad time health wise. So I think we should, and people are following him. Most of the people
are following. Most of the people, they are
Yes.
following things, but we have to little do more, take up the more responsibilities, and stay
Yes.
at home and propagate that kind of message to everybody. And at the same time, I take an opportunity that this is a disease which is connected with human, not with the animals. So in case if you have any chance to take care of the animals and want to give some food, so we all are free to do that. And yes, so any other message, and how you're spending your time nowadays in 21?
Sorry?
How you're spending your time?
Well, I am meditating a lot, and I'm like busy in household chores. I'm meditating a lot, and plus, yes, like you said, I make it a point that every evening I feed 5 street dogs or cows or whatsoever animal I find, and I try feeding poor people also. The daily wages, some of them are still here, and it's very difficult for them to survive. So I have given up one time of me, and that one time of me I do give to someone. So this is humanity, and this is the time to show the humanitarian gesture also.
Yeah, you are doing a great work, Ritu. Please keep on doing, and be safe, stay healthy, and we will be doing. We will be lighting lights in our balcony
Yes.
and the front door on 5th at 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So stay safe. It was nice talking to you. We'll meet again and discuss more interesting episodes, interesting information. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Pleasure. Bye bye.
Hello friends, this is Chandrakant from Akulmac Technologies. Welcome to Dobras. So I would like to run a scene, a typical scene in the office. And the scene is like this, that you are a marketing manager and you want to basically start a campaign using a particular marketing channel. And then you basically make a big report about that channel. And if